So if you're thinking of opening up your own private personal training studio, let's take a look at some of the pros and cons of doing that and whether or not it actually meets your long-term goals, desires and aspirations. So for me, opening up my own personal training studio was probably the biggest aspiration I had in terms of my personal training career. I was fortunate I went on to open up more than one and employ staff, but I think for a lot of personal trainers, just having your own facility is quite a nice place to be. So let's dive into what the first pro is of having your own personal training studio. Well, the first one for me was the privacy that it brought. You know, moving from that commercial gym setup where, you know, you have to be a little bit cautious about your conversation. Not that you're saying anything that was outlandish or you couldn't say in public. Obviously you could, you're in a public setting, but you're always a bit mindful of the fact there's somebody close by within, you know, earshot of what you're saying. And I think also the clients can be a little bit guarded in terms of what they do say because they're in that arena. And in addition to that, you've also got clients that can feel a little bit intimidated in terms of how they move their bodies, whereas when you're in a private setting, you know, the conversations can be more fluid, can be more open. People are more happy to make mistakes with their exercises and not feel intimidated or feel embarrassed because there are other people looking on them and watching what they do. Not that people are, but you know, as a client, you can feel a little bit that way. So having that additional privacy just makes a whole personal training experience, both for the client and for yourself, far richer, I think, and more. I just think, you know, more valuable for the client as well. Okay, so the second one is increased income. Because you've got a facility where clients can literally come in back to back. When I run my studios, I would have a 5-minute gap between clients. So I'd wind the session down where you have the usual sort of chit chat and, you know, looking forward to the next session, a 5-minute gap, and I would have a small waiting area where clients could sit and actually wait to come in for the session. So that worked really well, having that back-to-back facility. The other thing that was beneficial for me was having the ability to offer different types of personal training options. So I used to run small group personal training. Now I get it, a small group is not personal training. However, from a client's point of view, it meant they were still getting exercise, they were paying a slightly reduced rate, so they weren't paying exactly, you know, I had 1 to 5 people, so they weren't paying 1/5 of their normal hourly rate. Not that I charged by the hour, but if you did it pro rata, it didn't work out that way. And it meant they had some camaraderie as well. And from my point of view, and indeed it would be the same for you, it meant that your hourly rate went up considerably when you are working with 5 people. So it gave you options to increase your income without having to increase your hours. Okay, let's take a look at some of the pro or some of the cons of having a PT studio. And the first one, I think the obvious one, is you've got greater overheads. Every month you've got to meet that overhead fee, and if you're just starting out, that can be quite a nervous time, it can be quite a stressful time, and you can feel a bit pressured into getting those clients over the consultation line to becoming paying clients when you do have somebody in front of you. Now, in terms of the facility that you open up, one of the mistakes I think that personal trainers make is they believe they need all the latest equipment, and you don't. You don't need the latest techno gym equipment. You know, when I moved from my larger facility down to a smaller facility, the biggest piece of equipment I had in there was a cable machine, which meant all the rest of it, and a rowing machine and a bike and a Kaiser. Those are my 3 biggest pieces of equipment: cable machine, rowing machine and a Kaiser bike. All the rest of it were the sort of things that you would use as a freelance personal trainer: kettlebells, resistance bands, boxing mitts. So when you've got a facility that has that sort of equipment in it, it doesn't need to be that big, which means you can keep your overheads down to a more manageable amount. Excuse me. Okay, next con I would say is you become a lone worker. Now that may or may not bother you. You know, maybe when you worked in a commercial gym, if that's where you are now, and you're thinking of moving across to your private studio, maybe you want to think about, well, do I quite enjoy having downtime when I've got other PTs around me that I can have a conversation with, bounce some ideas off, maybe have a coffee with? When you have a studio, even when you have staff, as I did, we're never in the facility at the same time, so you're still pretty much a lone worker. So that's something that's worth thinking about. If you value having other PTs around you, then maybe having your own studio may not be the way to go. And the final con, if you want to call it a con, because it can actually be a positive as well, is that you have to be an above average marketer. Why? Because you are asking a complete stranger to come into your facility and work with you on a one-to-one basis, which can be very intimidating. You know, for a lot of clients, they've said to me, just getting on that initial telephone call can be quite an intimidating thing to do. So the fact they've now got to come into your facility can make it even more intimidating. So you have to be an above average marketer. Now, one of the ways that you can improve your marketing success, certainly from an organic point of view, and it may even spill over into paid advertising as well, is by aligning yourself with other health and wellbeing practitioners in your local community. So I used to align myself regularly with the physios, the chiropractors, nutritionalists, massage therapists. In fact, I built my own networking group where I could meet regularly all the other health and wellbeing practitioners. And what that meant was, if that practitioner happened to mention me as the personal trainer to a potential client, that client that already knows, likes and trusts that physiotherapist, for example, or osteopath in my case, then I can borrow some of the know, like and trust they have for that osteopath. In my case, a business called Not Just Backs, the osteopath there was a lady called Rianne Osborne. Then I would borrow some of that know, like and trust they had for Rianne, and that would then be transferred across to me, making me a more trustworthy type of person. Now, as you're listening to this video, if you're thinking, you know, I would like some help with my personal training business in terms of how to better attract clients using organic methods, how to convert those clients into not just high paying clients, but clients who stay with you for a long period of time, i.e. a minimum of 12 weeks and beyond, and maybe helping you to get better results with those clients. If that appeals to you, there's a link below this video. You can click on it and you can book in for one of my free client growth strategy calls, where we'll speak specifically about your business and how to improve the attraction, conversion, and indeed the results you get with your clients. Just find the link, click on it, it'll take you to a page, answer a few simple questions, and you can book in for that call. There are limited slots available throughout the week.